Elara, a lowborn squire serving in the castle of Lord Darien, struggles with her daily training and the ridicule of noble-born peers. Set in the grim medieval kingdom of Avalorn, the chapter establishes Elara's fierce ambition and her frustration at being overlooked due to her common birth. During a particularly brutal training session where she is soundly defeated by the Lord's son, Elara overhears rumours of a dragon's lair discovered in the northern mountains, said to contain treasures beyond imagination. That night, Elara stares at her calloused hands, contemplating a life of servitude versus the glory she desperately craves, foreshadowing the dark choices that lie ahead. Unable to resist the lure of potential glory, Elara steals away from the castle in the dead of night, taking only her training sword and meagre provisions. After a treacherous 3-day journey through the Frostspine Mountains, she discovers the entrance to the dragon's lair, a massive cavern with ancient scorch marks and scattered bones. Deep within the winding tunnels, Elara finds the skeletal remains of a massive dragon, its bones gleaming in the dim light filtering from above. In the creature's ribcage, she spots something golden, the echoing edge, a magnificent sword with runes etched along its blade. The moment Elara touches the hilt, the sword pulses with golden light, and she experiences a surge of strength and clarity unlike anything she's ever felt before. Unbeknownst to her, as she triumphantly raises the sword, a small fragment of her earliest childhood memory, her mother's face, silently slips away from her mind. On her return journey to Avalorn, Elara encounters a group of bandits attacking a merchant caravan. Without hesitation, she draws the echoing edge, which hums with an eerie resonance. Time seems to slow as Elara moves with newfound speed and precision, dispatching the bandits with terrifying efficiency. The merchants, led by the wealthy trader Thorn, watch in awe as this young squire fights with the skill of a seasoned knight. After the battle, Elara feels disoriented, unable to recall exactly how she executed such perfect strikes. Thorn offers her a position as his caravan guard, but Elara declines, determined to return to the castle and prove her worth. That night, she dreams of golden light consuming her memories, but upon waking cannot remember the dream, only feeling a strange emptiness where something important once resided. Upon returning to Lord Darien's castle, Elara's transformed fighting abilities draw the attention of Sir Caldwell, an aging knight with a reputation for wisdom and caution. After witnessing Elara defeat 3 knights in a training exercise, Sir Caldwell privately approaches her about the source of her sudden prowess. Recognizing the golden sword at her hip, his face pales. Sir Caldwell reveals he once knew another warrior who found a golden weapon in his youth, a man who rose to great power but eventually could not recognize his own family. Sir Caldwell warns Elara about the echoing edge, explaining the ancient legends of memory-stealing weapons forged by forgotten gods. Elara dismisses his concerns, intoxicated by her new abilities and the respect she's beginning to command. When Sir Caldwell asks about her childhood village, Elara opens her mouth to answer but finds the name has vanished from her mind, leaving her momentarily confused and frightened. Sir Caldwell shares his personal history with memory-stealing artifacts, recounting how his own brother discovered a golden shield decades ago. He describes how his brother rose to become a celebrated general, but gradually forgot his family, his home, and eventually even his own name. The old knight takes Elara to the castle library, showing her ancient texts that speak of the echoing armaments, weapons that feed on memories to grant power. Elara listens but remains unconvinced, believing herself strong enough to master the sword rather than be mastered by it. That night, the echoing edge whispers to Elara in her dreams, showing her visions of conquest and glory. When she wakes, Elara can no longer remember the face of her father, though she doesn't immediately notice this loss. Instead, she feels a growing hunger for battle and the chance to prove herself further. Lord Darien announces a tournament to select his new champion, with knights from across Avalorn competing. Despite objections to a squire's participation, Elara's recent displays of skill earn her a place in the competition. Wielding the echoing edge, Elara moves through her opponents with supernatural grace, each victory feeling more instinctual than learned. In the final bout against Lord Darien's son, Elara performs a complex maneuver she never trained for, leaving the audience stunned. Lord Darien names her his champion, an unprecedented honour for a commoner. During the celebration feast, Elara struggles to recall details of her training years, the memories becoming hazy and distant. Sir Caldwell watches with growing concern as Elara's personality subtly shifts, becoming more confident but also more cold and calculating. The sword at her hip pulses faintly with each forgotten memory, growing stronger as Elara weakens. Lord Darien sends Elara to the eastern border to repel raiders from the neighbouring kingdom of Morith. Leading a small contingent of soldiers, Elara encounters a force 3 times their size. Rather than retreat, she feels the echoing edge urge her forward. In battle, Elara becomes a whirlwind of golden light, cutting down enemies with inhuman precision. Her soldiers watch in awe and fear as she single-handedly turns the tide, slaughtering dozens of raiders without receiving a scratch. After the battle, Elara stands amidst the carnage, unable to remember giving the order to attack or many details of the fight itself. A soldier mentions her hometown, asking if she fought with such ferocity to protect it, but Elara stares blankly, unable to recall where she was born or raised. That night, she writes in a journal, desperately trying to record details of her life before they slip away completely. Word of Elara's extraordinary victory spreads, attracting warriors seeking to serve under her command. Among them is Lysander, a charismatic mercenary captain with his own ambitions, who pledges his company to her cause. Renna, a mysterious archer with knowledge of ancient weapons, also joins, watching Elara with knowing eyes. Young Thomas, a peasant boy who witnessed Elara's victory against the raiders, becomes her devoted squire, reminding Elara of herself, though she can no longer remember her own childhood clearly. Lord Darien grants Elara command of a larger force, impressed by her results, but wary of her growing influence. Lysander suggests they could aim higher than border protection, planting seeds of conquest in Elara's mind. That night, Elara reads her journal entries but finds them like stories about a stranger, the emotional connections to her past completely severed. The echoing edge glows brighter at her side, feeding on these lost connections. Seeking answers about the echoing edge, Elara travels with Renna to a remote temple in the Darkwood Forest. Inside the crumbling structure, they discover wall carvings depicting warriors wielding golden weapons, their faces blank and featureless, while their enemies cower before them. An elderly priestess named Moira recognizes the sword and tells Elara it is one of the Soul Eaters, weapons forged by the Forgotten King to create perfect warriors unburdened by humanity. Moira warns that the sword doesn't just take memories, but eventually consumes its wielder's entire identity. Elara, already too attached to the power, refuses to believe her fate is sealed. Rena reveals she sought out Elara because her own sister once possessed a golden dagger with similar properties, eventually becoming an empty shell. As they leave the temple, Elara cannot remember her mother's name or face, though she knows she once had one. The priestess gives Elara a special amulet that may slow the sword's consumption, which Elara accepts but doesn't fully trust. Returning from the temple, Elara discovers Morith forces have launched a major offensive against Avalorn. Without waiting for Lord Darien's permission, Elara leads her growing army to meet the threat. The battle becomes a showcase of Elara's tactical brilliance and the Echoing Edge's power, as she cuts through enemy ranks with golden light trailing her blade. Lysander watches with calculated interest as Elara's fighting style becomes increasingly merciless. After a decisive victory, Elara's soldiers begin calling her the Golden Warlord, no longer seeing her as merely Lord Darien's champion. When Lord Darien's messenger arrives demanding she return to the castle, Elara hesitates, then refuses, declaring she will protect Avalorn her way. Thomas notices Elara no longer responds to her name sometimes, only reacting when addressed as Warlord. That night, Rena catches Elara staring at her own reflection in a pool of water, whispering, "Who are you?" The Echoing Edge pulses at her side, and for a brief moment, Elara considers throwing it away before the impulse fades like mist. Elara leads her army to the Morith capital, her forces swollen with those drawn to her growing legend. The siege is brief and brutal, with Elara personally leading the assault on the city gates. When the Morith king offers surrender, Elara momentarily doesn't understand the concept, seeing only enemies to be eliminated. Lysander quickly intervenes, accepting the surrender on her behalf. In the conquered throne room, Elara experiences a moment of clarity, suddenly unable to remember why she started fighting or what victory was supposed to bring her. When a Morith noble calls her a butcher without honour, Elara has a flash of memory, Sir Caldwell saying similar words to her, warning about the sword, before it slips away again. Rena presents Elara with a Morith historical text showing that the Echoing Edge once belonged to their royal family before being lost to a dragon centuries ago. The text reveals the sword's true nature. It doesn't just take memories, but transfers the wielder's life force into the blade, eventually leaving nothing but an empty vessel driven only by the weapon's hunger for battle. With Morith conquered, tensions rise within Elara's inner circle. Lysander argues they should continue expanding their territory, while Rena urges Elara to relinquish the sword before it's too late. Thomas, now witnessing Elara's increasingly erratic behaviour, becomes frightened of his once inspiring mentor. When Lord Darien sends an emissary demanding Elara's return to stand trial for insubordination, Lysander kills the messenger, claiming to protect Elara's honour. Rather than being horrified, Elara feels nothing, unable to remember her oath to Lord Darien or why it should matter. That night, Lysander attempts to take the Echoing Edge while Elara sleeps, believing it would transfer its power to him. The sword flares with golden light, and Elara awakens, nearly killing Lysander before Rena and Thomas intervene. Afterward, Elara cannot remember Lysander's name or his betrayal, only that he is someone in her army. Rena secretly sends a message to Sir Caldwell, warning that Elara is losing herself completely. Elara's army marches on Avalorn itself, with rumours spreading that she intends to overthrow Lord Darien. In truth, Elara herself no longer remembers her purpose, acting on the sword's impulses rather than her own desires. When they make camp near her childhood village, Elara wanders away from her tent, drawn by some faint recollection. She encounters an old woman who recognizes her, calling her by name and embracing her as a daughter long lost. Elara feels nothing, not recognizing her own mother. Devastated, the woman shows Elara a small mirror they once shared, but Elara sees only a stranger's face reflected back. Returning to camp in confusion, she finds Lysander has ordered the village razed to eliminate spies, the flames already consuming the homes. Elara watches impassively as her birthplace burns, the sword humming contentedly at her side. Thomas, horrified by her indifference, flees in the night, taking Elara's journal with him. Renna stays, still determined to save what remains of Elara's soul. Elara's forces easily overcome Lord Darian's defences, with many soldiers surrendering rather than face the Golden Warlord. In the castle where she once served as a squire, Elara confronts Lord Darian. The old lord looks at her with pity rather than fear, asking, "Do you even remember why you wanted this?" Elara hesitates, the question stirring something deep within her fragmenting mind. Before she can respond, Lysander strikes down Lord Darian, claiming the kill in Elara's name. Seated on the throne of Avalorn, Elara feels no triumph, no satisfaction, only a hollow emptiness and the sword's constant hunger. That night, alone in the royal chambers, Elara finds herself unable to recall her own name, searching her mind for any sense of self beyond Warlord. She discovers Moira's amulet around her neck, not remembering its purpose but feeling it is important. In a rare moment of clarity, she writes a single line on a piece of parchment. The sword is not worth the cost. By morning, she has forgotten writing it or why it matters. Sir Caldwell infiltrates the castle with Thomas's help, finding Elara standing motionless on the battlements, staring vacantly at the horizon. When he speaks her name, she does not respond until he calls her Warlord. Sir Caldwell shows her the journal Thomas saved, reading passages of Elara's early hopes and dreams. Though the words stir nothing in her, the amulet from Moira begins to glow, temporarily suppressing the sword's influence. In this brief window of clarity, Elara recognizes Sir Caldwell and remembers his warnings about the sword. She agrees to accompany him to see Moira, who may know how to break the sword's hold. As they prepare to leave secretly, Renna arrives with news that Lysander has declared himself Elara's champion and plans to use her as a figurehead while he rules. With the amulet's protection fading, Elara feels the sword's pull strengthening again. In a desperate move, Sir Caldwell knocks Elara unconscious, removing the echoing edge from her grasp for the first time since she found it. As they escape the castle with the unconscious Elara, both the sword and Elara begin to emit a golden light, suggesting their life forces have become dangerously intertwined. Sir Caldwell, Renna and Thomas bring Elara to Moira's temple in the Darkwood Forest. Separated from the echoing edge, which they've wrapped in special cloths and locked in a warded chest, Elara falls into a catatonic state. Moira explains that Elara's life force has been so thoroughly drained by the sword that she cannot survive without it unless they can restore what was taken. The priestess prepares an ancient ritual requiring items from Elara's past to anchor her remaining memories. Thomas retrieves Elara's original training sword from the castle, while Renna recovers a lock of hair from Elara's mother in the burned village. Sir Caldwell contributes his Medal of Knighthood, representing the honor Elara once aspired to. As Moira begins the ritual, the chest containing the echoing edge bursts open, the sword flying across the temple to hover above Elara's unconscious form. Golden tendrils connect the blade to Elara's body as Moira chants, attempting to reverse the flow of life force. Meanwhile, Lysander, having tracked them to the temple, arrives with soldiers, determined to reclaim both Elara and the powerful sword. While Renna and Sir Caldwell defend the temple entrance against Lysander's forces, Moira's ritual transports Elara's consciousness into a labyrinth formed from her own fragmented memories. Inside this mental construct, Elara encounters shadowy versions of herself from different points in her life. The ambitious squire, the Lord's champion, the merciless warlord. At the labyrinth's centre waits a golden figure holding the echoing edge, representing the sword's consciousness that has been feeding on her essence. To reclaim herself, Elara must remember who she was before the sword. Thomas, connected to the ritual through Moira's magic, appears within the labyrinth as a guide, showing Elara moments from her journal. As Elara progresses deeper, she begins to reclaim fragments of identity, though each recovery causes physical pain as her life force tears away from the sword. Outside in the physical world, Elara's body convulses on the altar, golden light erupting from her wounds, while the echoing edge vibrates violently, its runes flaring. Lysander breaks through the temple defences, striking down Renna before advancing toward the ritual chamber. In the memory labyrinth, Elara confronts the golden figure, recognizing it as not just the sword's essence, but also the parts of herself she surrendered willingly, her ambition, pride, and thirst for recognition. The figure offers her unlimited power if she accepts complete union with the sword, abandoning her humanity entirely. Tempted, Elara nearly agrees until Thomas shows her the final entry in her journal. The sword is not worth the cost. In the physical world, Lysander enters the ritual chamber, killing Moira with a thrust through her heart. The interruption causes the ritual to destabilize, the golden light from Elara's body and the sword intensifying to blinding levels. Sir Caldwell, mortally wounded, drags himself into the chamber as Lysander reaches for the hovering, echoing edge. Within the labyrinth, Elara makes her choice, rejecting the golden figure and reclaiming her core identity. The mental construct shatters as Elara awakens in the temple, just as Lysander grasps the sword. The echoing edge, denied Elara's life force, instantly turns on Lysander, rapidly draining his memories and essence. Sir Caldwell uses his last strength to push the chest containing the ritual items into Elara's hands, telling her to finish what Moira started. Using the ritual components and her reawakened will, Elara severs her connection to the sword completely. Lysander, now an empty shell, collapses with the sword still clutched in his hand, his eyes vacant and glowing with golden light. Elara returns to Avalorn with Thomas, bearing the bodies of Sir Caldwell and Renna for honourable burial. Though freed from the sword's influence, Elara discovers that many memories remain permanently lost, leaving gaps in her identity that can never be filled. The people of Avalorn view her with a mixture of fear, awe, and pity, the fallen warlord who both saved and nearly destroyed the kingdom. Lord Darien's son, now ruling in his father's place, pardons Elara in recognition of her final stand against the sword's evil, but banishes her from the castle that was once her home. Elara visits the graves of those who died because of her actions, including the villagers from her hometown. though she still cannot remember their faces or names. The echoing edge, still bound to Lysander's empty husk, has been sealed in a special vault beneath the temple ruins, where Moira's remaining acolytes stand guard. Though Elara no longer feels the sword's pull, she sometimes wakes in the night reaching for it, her body remembering what her mind has lost. Thomas remains loyally at her side, helping her relearn her own history through the journal entries he preserved. 6 months after the events at the temple, Elara and Thomas establish a small training camp in the border regions, teaching defensive combat to villagers threatened by bandits and wild creatures. Though Elara's fighting skills are diminished without the echoing edge, her hard-earned tactical knowledge remains intact. Former soldiers from her army, seeking redemption for following her into darkness, gradually join her camp, forming a protective force dedicated to defense rather than conquest. Elara struggles with nightmares and flashbacks, particularly when she encounters survivors from battles she led, but cannot remember fighting. When rumours spread of another golden weapon being discovered in the mountains to the west, Elara organises an expedition to find and contain it before someone else falls victim to its influence. Before departing, she visits the vault containing the echoing edge, finding Lysander still alive but empty, a walking husk that follows simple commands from the temple guardians. Looking into his vacant eyes, Elara confronts the fate she narrowly escaped and recommits to her path of atonement. Elara stands at the edge of a mountain lake, staring at her reflection 1 year after being freed from the echoing edge. Though she has established a new purpose and identity, the gaps in her memory remain like phantom limbs, present in their absence. Thomas, now a skilled warrior in his own right, brings news that they've located the rumoured golden weapon, a spear that has already claimed one victim in a nearby village. As Elara prepares for this new mission, she visits her mother's grave, leaving flowers though she still cannot remember the woman's face. In a private moment, she confesses to Thomas that despite knowing the sword's evil, she sometimes misses the clarity and purpose it provided. Thomas reminds her that true strength comes from choosing one's path despite uncertainty, not from the false confidence of the sword's influence. The chapter ends with Elara leading her small band of followers toward the western village, her hand occasionally drifting to her hip where the echoing edge once hung. Though incomplete and scarred, she moves forward, determined that no one else should pay the price she did for power. In the distance, a faint golden glow emanates from a cave in the mountainside, waiting to test her resolve once more.